Hey Karen, I hope you're doing well. I hope you've been staying safe and healthy. Thanks again for reaching out to Wonderful Machine and for sharing your website with us. Today I'll be going through your assessment and my notes on your website. Our goal is to identify the strengths and weaknesses of your current presentation and provide specific feedback on how you can refine it moving forward. As I was going through your website, something that I had noticed or what I had seen throughout your website were these intimate moments of care and community. And as you had mentioned in your questionnaire, that these images come from the heart. And I think I saw that pretty prominently through your website and through your images. I think you have a knack for capturing your subjects and creating these intimate moments with them. But also, as I went through your website, I noticed that you are showing quite a mix of or quite a variety of work that it's hard to get a sense of who you are as a photographer. So even on your main portfolio page, we're seeing a mix of landscapes and portraiture and travel and street images that it's hard to immediately get a sense of the work that you want to continue doing and the clients that you want to reach. And for the first page of your website, you really want that to pop out immediately to clients and communicate that easily so that they can get a sense of what to expect from the rest of your portfolio. And sometimes if clients can't immediately get a sense of who you are as a photographer and the work that you do, they are also less likely to stay on your website. And most often, if they can't get a sense of who you are as a photographer and what kind of work you want to continue doing, they are less likely to stay on your website. So it's really important to be thoughtful and mindful of how you present your work on your first page. And I think you have some great images here, like this image of the hands at the piano and this little boy with the balloon, or the man looking in the mirror. It makes me want to know more about the stories that you want to tell and the stories that you are passionate about. And because your work is so narrative driven, being a photojournalist, I would really recommend directing straight to those stories. And I know that you keep most of them in your blog. I think it's great that you have updated it pretty consistently, and it seems like you're shooting stories pretty frequently, and this can really greatly benefit your SEO. But from a client's perspective, this may be seen as though you are an amateur photographer or that you're a hobbyist. Most clients would prefer to see at least the images on the where you have put the portfolio page or your galleries rather than within your blog. And as I mentioned, I think it's great that you do have a blog for the reasons I had mentioned, particularly your SEO, and I think there's also opportunity here where you can share more of who you are as a photographer, like adding reflections about shoots or showing behind the scenes. But I would really emphasize showing these stories at least only the images, well, mainly only the images in your main galleries. But, continue to add in, this personal side of you on your blog. So, stories like this may be interesting if you're interested in telling more stories like this, or, this story I think seems to be stories that you're really passionate about, and, this can be a missed opportunity if clients don't look through the blog. I'm not sure how often clients really look through the blogs for work, and so potentially you may be missing opportunities where you can show these fully fleshed out projects and your higher quality work. So those are my thoughts in regards to showing your projects and your stories. As for the design and template, I think that you do have a nice simple template, I think that it works to your benefit, because then we can just focus on the main content of your website. But at least specifically to your blog, I think that we're also running into a challenge here where there are a lot of elements on the page that are clashing against each other. So, we have a block of text here, a navigation bar here, different image boxes, and the actual blog post on the right here. And this can be overwhelming to see or experience once you land on this website or on this page, because there's just so much information to take in. Where I would really recommend simplifying this and refining this even more by centering the blog posts, just have it direct straight to the main content. The text here isn't really providing much more information than what we'll already read here, and then having a second navigation bar suddenly feels like there are two different ways to navigate through your website, and that can definitely be really confusing. If I click into each story, it takes me to different pages and to different posts, or maybe multiple posts, or there's just so much going on with this navigation. And I'm not sure if this is going to be work that's relevant to me. So even if I were to go through your blog to see what kind of work you have or the work you're showing here, it can also be hard to navigate through this. So I would really just recommend streamlining all of this by just keeping it as simple as possible and just having your latest blog post show up and the previous blog post following. What I also noticed, if we just go back to the main blog page for a little bit, is that it can run really, really long. So, there's a lot of texts and posts to go through, and again, there's just a lot of information to take in. And then when we get to the bottom of your site, it seems like you have some important information that might be missed if someone doesn't go towards the end of your of the page. Maybe they just go up to the fourth post and they move to the next. I mean, luckily all this information also appears on all the pages, but you still want this information easily accessible on your blog as well. So especially because you have a subscription form specifically for your blog, you don't want to miss the opportunity for someone to sign up. You have your phone number, and you also have these social media links. So it could be beneficial if you were to maybe limit the amount of posts that appear per page, or if there's a way that you can have at the bottom of maybe like your first paragraph, the intro paragraph, and it says read more, and you hyperlink that text to go to the actual page where the blog post lives, and then they can read into more of that story. But everything here can just be a preview. I'm not sure if that's a capability in Squarespace, but that might be worth, looking into. Again, just kind of streamlining and making it easier for visitors to come in through your site and browse through it. So those are my thoughts on your blog. And I'll go into your galleries next. Photojournalism, and kind of same thing here as I've mentioned in portfolio. Just really call attention to your stories, and the same way that you are using a drop down menu here, maybe rather than galleries you can say stories and go straight into different projects. So maybe Dr. Bob's Brain or A Power of Love, and the like. Here we're seeing a mix of tear sheets, quotes, street photography. I mean, I really do like this image. Again, I think being able to capture these kinds of moments of humanity is really your forte, and looking at this image, it makes me want to know more about the community, the neighborhood. Is the story about the restaurant behind the man? Is this an event that's going on that they do every year? Is this something special about the subject? And I'd love to see more of that. So that's why I really would strongly recommend showing your stories. So we're really seeing a mix of different work here, and there's also a lot of tear sheets, and I think it's valuable to show tear sheets as long as they're work that you've done within the past 2 years. We're also seeing some live sports events work, and the like. I'm not sure if that's work that you want to continue doing, but if it were, then you can have a separate section specifically for sports, but I don't remember seeing that within your questionnaire, so I would recommend just kind of keeping that in a hidden gallery via orphan link, or just removing it from your website. And I also noticed too, in your images, you add a copyright notice, or your website, or you add a watermark. You add a watermark, and then or you add your website. And I think it's understandable why you would want to add your watermark, but this can also present you as someone who is not experienced, a little bit more amateur or a hobbyist, which I know that definitely isn't the case for you. But the text can be distracting from your images as well, so I would recommend removing it. I think it's great that I can't even right click and save your image at all. It seems like you work with a copyright lawyer, and if your images are copyrighted, I would hope that you don't run into this case, but if you ever have an issue, you should be covered in and of itself just by having your images copyrighted. So I understand why you would want to, but I would recommend removing it, as clients may mistakenly view your work as hobbyist or amateur. And so I'm going to go into your travel gallery. I did remember from your questionnaire you had mentioned that you wanted to do more travel work. And I think you have some great images in here as well. I do like this image, and the bright blues. I love the ripples in the water, and the reflection is a really nice, quiet, but simple but quiet moment. There is another image here that popped out to me here, where I really like their expressions. But as I went through this gallery, I noticed that these are moments that you took while traveling, rather than telling a story about a culture or a place or the people. And that's really what travel clients are looking for, whether it's a tourism board or a publication. And I think you're off to, if you were to start a story with this, or have an image like this next to an image like this, you can start weaving in these stories together, where maybe you can do the best food spots in Memphis, or maybe you can do the best jazz bars in Memphis, or music halls, or something that makes Memphis stand out to attract tourists, but also tell a story about the experience. Makes people want to be in Memphis. And again, I think you have some images that you can start with. You just need to add on to create a fully fleshed out project that tells a story. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but one of the benefits of just really directing straight to a story rather than having these vague categories is that you can have just that one project that you can dedicate to that story, and clients will click into it and can kind of expect, what kind of work they may be looking at. But also the challenge with just having these general categories is that images can be repeated, and if in your website, I noticed that images have been appearing or have been repeating throughout the galleries, and this can be discouraging for clients as they go through your website. If they see an image that they've already seen before, it makes it feel like they're not looking at anything new. What are they seeing in this gallery that they haven't seen before and within your own website and wouldn't see again in the next projects? So you really want your galleries to be have their own individual, unique edit that entices the client to want to stay on your website and learn more about who you are as a photographer, and also eventually hire you. I mean, that's the goal, right? So yeah, I would also recommend, straying away from duplicating images. I'll go into portraiture. And again, I think you have some nice images here. I like, images like this. And I think this one really stood out to me. I really like her expression. I like the mood. I like just kind of this personal moment that makes me want to look at her and want to know about her. I like the strands of hair that are waving in the wind, or where is she looking, what is she thinking about. It makes me want to learn more about her, and I think that's really interesting, and I think that's what's really usually compelling to me for portraiture, is when I want to know more about the person, or I want to, or there's more personality. Like here, I love the pipe in her mouth and kind of this nonchalant attitude that, again, is really interesting. But with your portraiture gallery, I think that, or what I notice is that it's more of a collection of, or it's more of a people gallery than a portraiture gallery, where I'm not really getting a sense of who this person is in the image. It's not really telling me much about the person, or they're not really giving me much of a personality. So, like this graduation picture, that automatically screams retail to me, like it was shot for personal use rather than for commercial or editorial use. Family, kids, this hospital image, they just don't really belong in a portraiture gallery. And from what I remember in your questionnaire, you had mentioned that you weren't really interested in this kind of work where it's more contrived and set up. And that's fine. If that's something that you don't want to really pursue, then you can remove this from your I would say to remove this from your website, or keep it in an orphan link in case someone wants to see what kind of portraiture work you've done. But if this is something that you want to continue doing, then I would recommend putting together a gallery of 20, maybe 30 images of work like this, or this, where again you're telling us more about the person and who they are versus like what they are doing, and also avoiding the more retail images like graduation pictures, marital or family images. And if you don't have enough work to fill out, enough recent work from the past 5 years to fill out a gallery of 20 to 30 images, then I would recommend putting together some self-assigned projects where you can fill this out a little bit more. So those are my thoughts on your portraiture gallery. And again, I think you have some great images to start with. I would just recommend putting together a tighter edit, and possibly working on self-assigned projects to fill it out, as I had mentioned. Next, I'm going to go to your photojournalism projects. And similarly here, I will say the same thing that I said in photojournalism and portfolio, directing straight to a stories gallery and keeping your stories in one place. I noticed that you link straight to, link back to your blog, And this, again, kind of confuses your navigation. If I had visited your blog already and I'm led back to your blog, it can, I would wonder why am I back on the blog? I did just visit this, why am I seeing this again? Or if I've never been to your blog, then I'm brought to a completely new page that I wasn't in, so that can also be really confusing. It feels like I have to go through one page, just through multiple pages, just to see where I can see your work. So again, I would just really streamline your navigation by directing straight to stories. The stories you're most passionate about telling that your dream clients would also want to see and hire you for. So I'll just go straight into your About page now. Oh, sorry, one thought before I actually go to your About page. In regards to your navigation, because we've been touching on that a little bit as we have been going through your website. Something that I notice a lot with photographers is that they have a portfolio page and then a galleries page and then general categories. Just something to think about when you're putting together categories for your work, whether it is stories, whether it's travel, and then portraiture and sports if you want to continue doing that. Again, just being streamlined with your navigation and directing straight to those categories or those stories. What is the difference between portfolio and photojournalism and photojournalism projects? You want to really be direct, so that when clients go through your website, they can kind of get a sense of what to expect and in the gallery that they're about to click into. So just some quick thoughts, summarizing some other points that I had made throughout the assessment about your navigation. So then I'll go into so now I'm going to go into your bio. It's really great to see and learn more about you, get a better sense of who you are. Again, as a photographer, I think your About pages are a great opportunity to do so. Similarly, the challenges that we were running into with the blog, we're running into with your About pages. So I think all this information can be really valuable. I would just really recommend consolidating some of this information and cleaning it up and tuning it up, where it's easy for clients to navigate. Similarly in blog, where there's just kind of so much information and text elements everywhere, I think here we can refine this. So when we start off, we see a quote from one of your friends and an award-winning photojournalist, which is awesome. But in terms of like hierarchy of information, or I think this should be like the supporting quote to the rest of your portfolio rather than kind of like the main section of the page that we first land into. So I would recommend moving this down a little bit more, and then bringing your headshot up, because I think that's definitely more important. Putting a face to the name, showing the artist behind the art. So bringing this up and then bringing your bios up. I would recommend removing Karen Pulfer Focht, as this appears twice on the page, and especially because your logo is prominent throughout every page, this feels unnecessary. As for your bio, it feels like you have two bios. I would recommend taking the most important information from both and consolidating it. When I read through both, it felt like I was kind of reading the same thing, just worded differently. So I would, plus some, obviously some, also some information about where you've been published, so that's really awesome. But again, like just the most important information and putting it in one concise bio, I think you're off to a great start. It's just kind of fine-tuning it, as I've been mentioning. As for the As for where you've been published, that appears in that bio or awards or honor section, and it also is in your in-print page. I would just remove your in-print page and then add your client list beneath the pictures. So if you have the bio here, and then underneath your picture here, it says client list, and it's just a list of who of where you've been published. Then it's easy for clients to see, like, oh, okay, that's where she's been published. It pops out immediately rather than kind of finding it in a mix in your bio. So I would recommend adding that here, as well as your awards or honors. As for recommendations, I would recommend removing this. It feels kind of salesy. I'm not sure if it's really providing much more information than what I've already seen and what I'm already reading about. I think your work will really speak volumes to the clients more than recommendations. I would recommend removing the recommendations. And then I know that you have your phone number here, and I would just recommend moving that to your contact page. And then I notice that you note to the social media links below, and also link to some other portfolios that you have. If you find that the videos will be valuable, and I think that they will, I think more and more clients are really looking for photographers who can do motion, and especially for you as a photojournalist, your documentary video work I think would be very valuable. I would hyperlink that into your navigation bar and maybe say video or motion, and hyperlink your Vimeo link. As for stock, either or, if you think that it's valuable to have a navigation bar, I think to add it, I don't think there's any harm in adding it to your navigation bar. And again, it's also easier for clients to find that kind of work if they're looking for that kind of work. So I would shift that information to your navigation bar. For the social media links, again, I think having them in the footer can be a missed opportunity. But I also think that it's important to have them available on each page. But primarily, like, your Instagram and your LinkedIn will be, and possibly your Vimeo, if it's not going to show up in your navigation bar, are going to be the most important links that you want to show. In regards to Pinterest and Facebook and Tumblr and Twitter, I'm not sure how often clients are looking through those social media outlets to find photographers and find work. So I think these links can probably either be hidden or removed, unless you use like Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest and Tumblr as networking tools, and they have been efficient marketing tools. So thoughts on those, but I would also recommend maybe adding I would also recommend with social media links, maybe not having them in your footer, but rather having them in your contact page, especially because that's where you should have all your contact information anyways. And if clients want to just contact you, they would go into your contact page. So I would recommend that. Moving that information there. I noticed that you have, in regards to your contact page, since I've been talking about it, I'll kind of address it here. For your contact page, I would really recommend adding your personal contact information and hyperlinking that information. So KarenPulfer@gmail.com should be easy to click into so that they can send you an email. Same thing with your phone number. If they're looking through your website on their phone, they can just give you a call. Clients really appreciate having that direct contact information, and since you do have that on your website, contact forms can be feels unnecessary. It also doesn't really feel personal, and we've talked about that certain aspects of your website may seem amateurish or like you're a hobbyist, again, which is definitely not the case. Contact forms are essentially in the same way. Clients would like to know where their emails are going. They will like to have that personal touch. So I think that would be of really benefit to you if you just kind of moved all the contact information onto this one page and having all that information in one place. Removing it in other places, again, just kind of streamline all that information and organizing it. I think it's great that you have Karen Pulfer Focht is a photojournalist based in Memphis, Tennessee. We kind of also see that here. I think this is still great though, but as for this, once you move this information here, you can, I think this would be great to see, Memphis, Tennessee photojournalist underneath as maybe a little word mark underneath your logo. So heading back to your About page, you have this philosophy section, and I think once you solidify your bio and solidify your contact page and organize all of the information in your About page, that your philosophy page will not really be necessary. It's not really adding much more information, again, about who you are as a photographer. I think that this kind of feels salesy. I think that you should let your work, again, speak for itself. I think you do have an authentic voice, and I think that comes out. So I don't think you need to put it into words, because I think your images will say that. And if you're showing high quality work, then I think clients will expect that high quality work, So I think that adding this information can actually work against your benefit. I noticed that you do have these quotes throughout your galleries as well, or captions, and I remember you were thinking about them and you received some feedback to add that, and I would agree with you that I think that captions may be adding some, or sometimes unnecessary, but it also, again, always depends on the on what's on the page. If you're doing the power of love story and you have an artist statement that you think clients or visitors need to know about, is providing more information that they're not going to see in your story, then I think that would be valuable. I think it's very common for photojournalists to kind of have that artist statement and to give a little summary prior to or within the gallery as like the first image within that gallery. So that really is up to you as a preference whether or not you want to do that. But in terms of like the quotes and from different photographers, that can be slightly distracting from the content of your work. So I would also recommend removing that from your website. And next we'll go into your store. Overall, I think this is fine, especially if this is another source of income, then I think it's great that you have this on your website. I'm wondering if, because you have a lot of work that you're selling, that it would be easier to have an external shop like Big Cartel or Shopify, where customers can navigate through all of this and it's an easier shopping experience. And you can add more products to the page that has these different options or varieties, and maybe you wouldn't have a separate retail catalog for to put in like a mail-in order or custom order. So just kind of quick thoughts on that. But my other concerns, again, with having a store, it with a lot of these fine art prints, again, might also present you as an amateur who's making money off of print sales rather than being commissioned for rather than a professional editorial photographer being commissioned by publications. So some quick notes on that. But if this is makes up of a good chunk of your income, then I would recommend leaving it for now. Other quick thoughts before I wrap up. I did want to talk about the subscription form. You call to action to subscribe to your blog, and I'm wondering if it's a better marketing for you to say maybe subscribe to a newsletter or subscribe to my emailers or subscribe to just stay updated. I'm not sure if it's enticing for clients to receive a notification every time you post a new blog where and because you post pretty frequently, it depends on person to person, but that might not be as efficient as if they were to subscribe to a quarterly newsletter or emailer, where maybe they'll just get an email for you once every 4 months about new work that you've been working on, or a story you just published, or an update on your website that really calls to action as to why they would want to come revisit your website. You want to find that balance of like updating frequently enough to stay relevant, and then reaching out enough and in a timely manner to get clients to come back to your website and take a look at your website. So rather than maybe the subscription to your blog, I think that might work better. And that is all. I think, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think by, streamlining your navigation and pushing your stories out from your blog and into your main galleries, and directing straight to your stories, will put you at a better place as you're marketing to new and old clients. They would love to see how you tell stories and how you capture those authentic moments. And I think that you have some great images to start off with. And it seems, again, I think you're very passionate about your work. I think you're very passionate about being a photographer. And I think that it seems like you have enough recent work to be able to fill out stories on your website and show those clients what you offer. So I would really recommend focusing on that. And then if you'd like to work on that with us, we definitely would be happy to. If you need help with selecting and putting together stories on your website, you can reach out to Brian, but you can also reach out to me, and I'll also connect with you soon to get your thoughts and your notes on your web assessment, and address any concerns and ask any questions that you may have. But thanks again, Karen, for sharing your website with us. It was great taking a look, and I hope you found this assessment valuable, and I look forward to talking with you soon. Stay safe, stay healthy, and talk soon. Bye, Karen. Thanks.